Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! The GM was a bit suspicious of her, but didn't have the proper proof that it was her doing it, until she became too cocky or thought she'd never get caught. The cast of the story includes me, Karen, the co-worker who was fired, Sharon, the co-worker who is a victim, and co-workers, Karen's other victims, River, no BS GM, and Kane, chill manager, security himself. This happened several months before Top Golf bought the location, and I was still fairly new at my job. I believe I had only been there for a month or two, cause I remember Karen was still new herself. She was very nice and told everyone that she was planning on starting college soon, and very excited about going into criminal justice. It wasn't until maybe 4 or 5 months into her employment that her true colors started showing and money started disappearing from everyone else's drawers. Everyone but mine, cause by this point I had been moved from concession stand to chicken tickets, and I hadn't started working box office until a few months later, while Karen's drawer was always has extra cash in it after her shift. There were still occasional days where I was scheduled to run the concession stand, but these days where Karen wasn't scheduled to work, which I didn't find out until later why this was happening. It wasn't until one busy weekend where a lot of us were scheduled because a new movie just came out, as well as a special event for said movie, and we needed a lot of hands behind the concession stand for it. I was one of the extra hands and was just grabbing extra things for anyone who needed help on the registers. Then after the event ended, I just had to cover for breaks, then I was allowed to leave. I was to cover for coworker 1 and 3 before I could leave, while Karen was covering for Sharon and coworker 2. Then Kane would handle Karen and everyone else that didn't get their breaks afterwards. When Sharon came back from her break, I noticed Karen was acting a bit on edge, but I just assumed she had a bad day, cause some of the customers who were ordering from the event weren't so nice to us and made constant changes to their orders repeatedly, not including yelling at us for how long it takes to heat up food and so on. Karen got back to her register and immediately opened her register, then started counting her cash, as if she was making sure she had plenty of it. Myself and the managers noticed this and was confused since it wasn't closing time yet. Karen was repeatedly counting her money to the point that she was ignoring the customers that wanted to place an order. River did a gentle throat clearing to get Karen's attention, but Karen didn't seem to notice. Luckily, I called him over to take their order, to which River went over to Karen to ask if she was alright. Karen claimed she was just fine and didn't notice the customers or was just distracted by personal reasons. I don't remember. River seemed to just let it go and walked away. As soon as River was out of earshot, Karen immediately scoffed and rudely said, she always has to stick her nose into everyone's business. Doesn't she know anything about personal space? It's not like I was stealing money. I was just counting my cash. Sheesh. I was surprised by the sudden snarky remark from Karen, since she was always very nice and rarely made these kinds of remarks towards anyone, besides towards the maintenance manager that nobody likes working with because of how high and mighty he acts. Before I could say anything, Kane comes over and lets me leave because he can wait until coworker 3 returns. Since the night shift was going to be arriving soon and because it was going to take a few minutes before my ride gets there, so I just go and clock out. I was about to tell River about the snarky remark Karen made about her, but when I walked into the office with my drawer, she was talking with a different manager and just gestured to me to put my drawer down on the counter and she'd check it when she was done talking. It wasn't until a week later when I was running concession stand with coworker 5 and we were just casually talking about the new movies that were showing and making predictions of the total of people who were going to come watch movies by the end of the week, when we saw Karen walk in for her shift, or so we thought. Not 5 minutes after Karen clocks in, River calls Karen into her office, which prompted coworker 5 to say a bit excitedly, "Oh, Karen's going to get it now." Me confused? What do you mean? You haven't heard? Karen was caught on camera stealing cash for everyone's drawers, especially Sharon's drawer. Oh, I don't know because I haven't been scheduled to work for the past few days. Before we could say any more, River opens the door to the office and coworker 5 immediately stops talking. We just watch as Kane and security walks Karen to the locker room, where Karen then grabs her stuff with a very annoyed look on her face, or even a I could care less about losing my job look on her face as she's being escorted out of the building, which was the last time she was seen in the building. River eventually pulled me to the side and revealed a lot of them suspected that Karen had been stealing cash from other drawers and keeping it for herself. But for some reason, the maintenance manager was convinced that I was the one who had been taking money despite me not being there at the time and not having any experience working in the box office, which the other managers and River herself backed me up and wasn't convinced that I was the one taking the money, since in River's own words, "You're too honest, kind, straightforward, and wouldn't try to take something out of someone else's drawer." Even though they suspected Karen of doing so from the start, they still had to keep a close eye on anyone who ran a register, including me. But I'm glad I wasn't the one who bit the bullet, even though the maintenance manager wanted me to jerk. I'm glad everything worked out in the end. A couple of months later, I was at a buffet with my family and just enjoying some food when I thought I recognized the server, to which I turned and looked at the server's face. It was Karen, and I'm sure she saw me cause she kept her head down, while making sure to keep her distance from me and my family. I wasn't planning on approaching her or calling her out on what she did, but I doubt she's getting into criminal justice with that imprinted on her resume. This is a short story my dad shared with my family a few days ago, and the ending was too glorious to keep to myself. My dad was at a grocery store gas pump during a pretty busy part of the day. According to my dad, he spent maybe 50 minutes just to get to a bump because some jerk who constantly jumped in front of him, rather rudely, and occupied that spot instead. However, while most of these drivers just cut in front, the final encounter my dad had, some Karen driving a large fancy car made the insane decision to not only cut my dad off with enough speed and hostility to cause an accident, but to also look my dad directly in the eyes and laugh at him as she did. Apparently this Karen forgot the most important rule of driving: keep your eyes on the road. Why, you ask? Because as this woman cut my dad off laughing right in his face, her very nice car proceeded to ram at full speed directly at the gas pump she was trying to steal. Bam! Instant karma. Unfortunately, my dad never found out what happened after he got the heck out of there, fearing that the bomb would blow if he didn't. And while our small-ish town didn't hear a loud explosion that day, it was probably safe to assume that woman definitely felt something. Folks, moments like these are what keep me smiling. Sometimes you just want to see pity people get smacked in the face by karma's oh so loving embrace. Feels so good. Also, in case anyone asks, I think that woman is fine. There hasn't been any news reports or anything about it, so if anything, she probably just had to worry about the damage to her car and the bomb. But if something does come up, I'll probably post an update if people are interested. Either way, I find the best justice to be watching pity people learning harsh lessons as a result of their pity actions. There is nothing better, honestly. I used to go to a certain 24-hour gas station close to my house around 3 or 4 a.m. regularly because that's when I got off work and not much else was open. It was usually the same guy working. He was always friendly but not really creepy seeming. One night I was just getting some honey and he said don't worry about paying. It was odd, but I figured maybe he already counted his drawer or was mad at his boss. Whatever. Then he said, hold on, I want to show you something, and started walking toward the back. I followed him, not nervous, but I prefer a good amount of personal space, so I stayed about 4 to 5 feet behind him. He opened the door to the back room and I could see from where I was standing that it was just a stock room and it was mostly empty, so when he stepped in the doorway and motioned for me to follow, I stopped and asked what he wanted to show me. Dude lunged at me, grabbed my arm and tried to yank me into the room. Fortunately for me, I'm really strong, a lot stronger than I look, and I grabbed him back, yanked him away from the room toward the cameras and kinda threw him into the wall. I said thanks for the honey witch, and I left. At first I was mad, then I was depressed about it. I thought about calling the cops, but in the place I lived, they didn't even show up for gunshots half the time. I thought about calling his boss, but he had been there for years, and a lot of times these things don't get taken seriously. I didn't know what I was going to do, but the next day I went to his my phone, clearly videotaping him. And when he saw me, he smiled. He liked that I had him on video and called me honey and flexed his muscles for the camera. What the hell? He literally just thought what he did was cool until I started talking and let him know in no uncertain terms that I was angry. His response was a nervous, "Oh, are you gonna get your boyfriend to come do something to me?" That made me even more mad. Like, why wasn't he afraid of me? He already knows I'm stronger than him. But he had such little regard for women that he thinks what he did was okay, and the only thing to worry about is if I get a man involved. The more I thought about it, the more I started to worry about other women crossing his path. Not all women are as strong as I am, and somebody else may have wound up in that back room. I thought he needed to learn that a woman can be scary and not feel so comfortable just casually assaulting us. I didn't want to hit him and go to jail, so I made a plan. And it was a fun one. I kept going in at random intervals. Sometimes multiple days in a row, sometimes not for weeks, sometimes after work, sometimes after a performance, dressed in any kind of mask or strange dirty sweaty clothes I had worn on stage. Every time was a new demented scenario. The first time I put a handful of coins in my mouth. Yeah, it's gross but worth it. It was well over the amount that honey cost. I walked in staring at him with a blank look on my face and grabbed the honey, never breaking eye contact. He was not happy to see me this time. He was on the phone and I walked toward the counter but stayed about 10 feet away and just stared. He tried to wave me to the register and cash me out while he was on the phone. He really didn't want to interact with me and my dead stare started to creep him out pretty quickly. It took about 5 minutes for him to get off the phone and he was weirded out by this time, but he wouldn't really call the cops or do anything because I had him on video admitting to assaulting me. I held my ground in my stare. It was so hard not to smile as he got more and more nervous, but I held on for about 10 solid minutes, then slowly walked up to the counter and opened my mouth, just letting all the coins just fall out. I stared blankly for another few seconds and walked out with my honey. Every time was something equally crazy. Once I just kept opening candy at the counter, taking one bite then dropping it and saying, "It doesn't taste good." "Why doesn't it taste good, huh?" "I just need it to taste good." Then I left a 20 in the counter and walked out. I'm not a thief. One time, I just cheerfully sang a cram songs and rearranged an entire aisle. Every time he tried to tell me to stop, I death glared him and sang louder. I visited him often for around 6 months. Sometimes I would act like he was my best friend and just hang out at the counter telling him random nonsensical stories. Sometimes I would act like I was so heartbroken and sad about the donut display or something, but I never ever let him speak. I would change my expression to a murderous stare and keep talking but make my voice very loud and firm until he shut up. Eventually, he developed a twitch and I could tell he was really miserable, so I felt I was done. My boyfriend really wanted to see this dude, so I brought him in for one last visit. Did the whole introduction like we were buddies. We both leaned on the counter drinking soda and eating candy for about 30 minutes. It was earlier than usual when a few other people were in and out. We were cheerful as hell. I told him that I felt like he didn't like me as much as he used to. I told my boyfriend in front of him. He used to like me a lot. He liked me so much that he tried to drag me into that back room over there. You gotta really like someone to do that. I asked him why he didn't like me as much as he used to. Told him I felt like I had been really a good friend. I even come to see him all the time. I even eat candy that doesn't taste good and help arrange shelves and sing him songs. I acted so hurt. So my boyfriend acted really offended and asked him why he doesn't like me as much. He knew better than to speak by now, so it was a real deer in the headlights scenario. As we were leaving, I said, "Oh, I have a present for you, but I forgot it. It's okay, I'll just bring it to your house. Don't worry, I wasn't following you or anything, I just was driving behind you and watching where you go. Bye." Then, I never went back. I don't have any way of knowing if it worked, but my hope is that next time this piece of trash wants to put his hands on a woman that doesn't want it, he remembers the 6 months of hell the last one. Edit. Please y'all, I didn't post this in a please tell me what I did wrong even though I'm perfectly happy with how I handled things thread. I already did this the way I did this. At this point, I'm just sharing a funny story about what I did and why I did it. Yes, if he would have succeeded in his attempt, I would have called the police, but an alleged arm grab in an off-camera area of a gas station is not a big priority in a high-crime area already well known for non-responsive police. It would have just validated his opinion that he did nothing wrong and done more harm than good.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.